This happened in 2022 when I was 30 and working remotely as a graphic designer. I'd just gone through a rough patch, burned out from work, my engagement had ended, and I needed space to reset. A friend of mine had recently inherited a house in rural Mississippi near a place called Magnolia Bend. It was one of those too small for a map towns, tucked between cotton fields and decaying churches, with nothing but two gas stations, a diner, and a police department that barely answered the phone. My friend didn't want the house. He lived out of state and told me if I wanted a quiet place to crash for a month or two, I could have it rent-free as long as I kept the pipes from freezing. It sounded perfect. A reset. I packed my car, drove the 11 hours, and arrived just after sunset on a Friday. The house was older than I expected. 2 stories, wide porch, heavy shutters. The kind of place that creaks every time the wind changes. Inside, it smelled like cedar and dust. Still had furniture too, grandfather clock in the foyer, old record player, floral wallpaper curling at the edges. No Wi-Fi, no TV, but my cell signal was decent. I lit a few candles, opened a bottle of wine, and for the first time in weeks, I felt calm. That peace lasted exactly 4 nights. It started on a Tuesday. I was lying in bed with a book when I heard it, a knock. Not on the front door, not on a window. From inside the house. It came from the 2nd floor. 3 soft knocks, like someone gently tapping on a wall. I froze. I hadn't been upstairs since I arrived. The place had 3 bedrooms, and I only needed the one on the main floor. I thought maybe the house was just settling. It was old, after all. I tried to ignore it. But the next night, the knocks came again. Louder this time. 5 slow taps. Same spot. Above the ceiling. That's when I grabbed my phone and called the Magnolia Bend Police Department. It rang 7 times before a tired-sounding man answered. I told him I thought maybe someone was in the house, maybe hiding in one of the rooms upstairs. He sighed, asked for the address, and said someone would swing by. An hour later, a single squad car pulled up. A middle-aged officer with a potbelly stepped out. Badge said Harmon. He walked through the house with me, up the creaky stairs. We opened every door. Nothing. Each room was coated in dust. Windows locked. Closets empty. He gave me a sympathetic look and said, "Old houses make noise, especially ones that haven't been lived in for a while." I asked if they could patrol more often. He shrugged. "We've got 2 cars for the whole county. Call again if anything serious happens." Then he left. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I decided to check the attic. The entrance was in the hallway ceiling upstairs, a square panel with a wooden pull cord. I'd avoided it until now. Took me a minute to gather the nerve. I grabbed a flashlight and pulled it open. The wooden ladder creaked down. I climbed up slowly. The air grew colder with each step. The attic was bigger than I thought, wide with sloped beams and boxes everywhere. I shined the flashlight around. Dust motes swirled like snow. Then I saw them. Footprints in the dust, leading from the attic entrance to the far corner. They weren't mine. They were small, like a child's, barefoot. I followed them cautiously. My heart was racing. There was nothing in the corner. Just a pile of old quilts and a doll, porcelain, with a cracked face and one eye missing. I kicked it over. Suddenly, something knocked 3 times from beneath my feet. I dropped the flashlight and scrambled down the ladder, heart pounding. I called the police again, told them what I'd seen, what I'd heard. They didn't send anyone. The dispatcher said there was no crime, no sign of forced entry, and unless I had physical evidence or an intruder in sight, there was nothing they could do. I hung up. That night, I barely blinked. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard something new, a dragging sound, like something heavy sliding across the floor. It came from upstairs. Then footsteps, slow, padded, moving across the ceiling above my bed. I grabbed the only thing I had, my metal water bottle, and crept to the hallway. That's when the front door creaked open. I ran to it. Nothing outside. No wind. No animals. I slammed it shut, locked it, and shoved a chair under the handle. I didn't call the cops. I knew they wouldn't help. Instead, I set up a camera app on my phone and propped it facing the hallway. I laid in bed with my headphones off, clutching the water bottle. At 3:04 a.m., I heard it again, footsteps in the attic. Then, a voice. Soft, childlike. Come play with me. The air went cold. The house groaned. And then, laughter. Giggling. Faint and distant. My phone vibrated. The camera had picked up motion. I unlocked the screen. There, in the grainy footage, standing halfway down the hallway, was a girl. Pale, barefoot, in a tattered white dress. Her hair matted. She stared directly into the lens, and then smiled. I screamed and bolted. Left the house barefoot, drove to the nearest motel 6 towns over, and checked in shaking. The next morning, I returned. Everything was as I left it, except the attic panel. It was open again, and nailed to the inside of the front door was a photo, Polaroid, of me, asleep, in bed. Back in 2021, I moved to a city in northern Illinois after getting hired for a freelance design gig. The pay was good, the contract was long-term, and I found a furnished apartment downtown in a rundown but affordable building. It was one of those early 1900s buildings, creaky floors, narrow hallways, weird smells in the stairwell. But it had charm, and I was broke. I didn't care. My unit was on the 3rd floor, apartment 3C, right above a vacant unit, 2C. The landlord told me it had been empty for years. The guy who lived there before, an old man named Roy, had passed away alone in the unit, and no one had touched it since. No family, no estate, no one claiming it. I didn't think twice about it until the knocking started. The first time was around 1 a.m. I just shut my laptop and was brushing my teeth when I heard 3 knocks, slow and rhythmic, on my floor. Not my door, my floor. Like someone below was tapping on the ceiling. I paused, waited, then brushed it off. The next night it happened again. Same time, same 3 knocks. I leaned over the side of my bed and pressed my ear to the floor. Nothing. I thought maybe it was the plumbing or the building settling. But on the 3rd night, the knocks came again, followed by a voice. It was faint, but I swear it said, "Let me in." I jumped. My TV was off. My windows were closed. The sound had come from directly beneath me. I called my landlord the next day. He was skeptical. Said no one had a key to 2C. Said I was probably hearing things through the vents. I asked him to check it out anyway. He said he would. But when I came home from work later that day, I saw that the doorknob to 2C was covered in a strip of blue painter's tape, broken. Someone had opened it. I knocked on his door, but the landlord wasn't home. I called his phone. No answer. So I did something stupid. I tried the door handle. It opened. I didn't even push it. It creaked an inch all on its own. I don't know why, but I couldn't stop myself. I pulled the door open. The air inside was thick. It hit me like a wall, like rot and bleach mixed together. I stepped inside, phone flashlight on. The apartment looked untouched. Furniture still there. Dishes in the sink. An old radio in the corner. The wallpaper was peeling. Every surface coated in grime. I walked down the narrow hallway toward the bedroom. That's when I saw the writing. Carved into the walls, scratched with what looked like fingernails. He lives beneath. Over and over. Dozens of times. I got out, slammed the door shut, and ran upstairs. I didn't sleep. The knocking didn't come that night, but at 3:11 a.m., the old radio in the unit below turned on. I heard the static buzz through the vents. Then a voice, crackly, distant. "I see you." I freaked out. Called 911. The dispatcher stayed calm, said they'd send someone out. An officer showed up 20 minutes later. A young guy looked half asleep. I told him what I heard. He agreed to check to see. We went down together. I held my breath as he opened the door. The smell hit him too. He gagged, stepped inside, flashlight sweeping left and right. I waited in the hall. After a minute, he stepped back out. "Nothing down there," he said. "Weird smell, but no one inside. Door locks fine. Probably just your nerves." He left. But the radio kept turning on. Every night, at 3:11 a.m. Always static. Sometimes whispers. I stopped calling the police. They didn't care, they couldn't help. Then the dream started. Every night, I dreamed I was standing at the bottom of a well. No sky, just darkness above. And every time, something slowly climbed down toward me. I'd wake up gasping, sweating, and from the floor below, a knock. One night, I recorded everything. I set up my phone to capture audio, left it running from midnight to 5 a.m. When I listened the next morning, the first hour was silent, then faint static around 3:10. Then a voice, a whisper, male, gravelly. "You shouldn't have opened the door." I deleted the file. I didn't want it on my phone. I begged the landlord to let me move to a different unit. He said the building was full. I asked him to seal off 2C. He laughed and said, "What do you think is going to crawl out?" That was the last time we spoke. That night, the knocks were louder. Not just on the floor, on my walls. Like something was moving around inside them. I pressed my ear to the wall by my bed and heard it breathing, wheezing, wet and deep, just behind the plaster. I ran, slept in my car. The next morning, I walked past 2C and froze. The door was wide open, and written across it in something dark and smeared, "You live above me." That night, I packed everything. I broke my lease, left the deposit, didn't care. Moved 3 states away. A week later, I got a Facebook message from a girl named Kayla. Her message said, "Hi, sorry to bother you. I think you used to live in 3C. Did you ever hear someone knocking from downstairs? I keep hearing footsteps at night. And yesterday, the radio in the unit below turned on at 3:11 a.m. There's no one living there, right?" I didn't respond. I blocked her. Some things you walk away from and never look back. This happened in the fall of 2019. I was in my late 20s, working as a night shift security guard in Michigan. My hours were strange, my sleep schedule worse. So when I found a cheap 1-bedroom rental house on the edge of town, I jumped on it. It wasn't fancy, just a small, creaky, 1-story place with a patchy lawn and a chain-link fence that leaned to one side. But it was mine. No upstairs neighbors stomping, no shared walls. The rent was cheap because, according to the landlord, the place had a bit of character. I didn't ask questions. For the first few months, things were normal. Quiet, peaceful even, except the basement. The basement made me feel watched. The door to it was in the hallway, right across from the bathroom. It was old, solid wood, painted shut years ago and repainted again badly. You had to tug it to open it, and when you did, the hinges shrieked like a dying animal. The light switch was halfway down the stairs, because of course it was, so the top of the stairwell always sat in darkness. But I had no reason to go down there. I used it for storage, old chairs, paint cans, a few boxes of books. The place smelled like old paper and mildew. I went down once after I moved in. That was enough. Then, in late October, things started happening. One night around 3 a.m., I was brushing my teeth after work when I heard a sound. 3 slow knocks. Not at the door. Not on a wall. on the basement door. I stood there, toothbrush in hand, frozen. It wasn't loud, but it was deliberate, spaced out, heavy, like someone tapping with their knuckles. I laughed nervously, told myself it was the house settling. I didn't open the door. A few nights later, it happened again. This time, I was in the living room. The knock came from down the hallway, followed by another, louder one. I turned off the TV, heart in my throat. Silence! Then, a whisper, muffled, like someone trying to speak through a door. I couldn't make out words, just breath and syllables. I grabbed my phone and walked slowly to the hallway. The basement door was closed. Still, I put my ear to it and heard breathing. Slow, wet breaths. Right on the other side. I backed away, locked myself in the bedroom. Didn't sleep. The next morning, I checked the basement. Nothing. Boxes untouched. No footprints. The windows were sealed. No signs of entry. Still, I called my landlord. He came over that afternoon. Said the place was fine. Joked that maybe I needed to lay off the horror podcasts. I didn't laugh. That night, I slid a heavy chair in front of the basement door and wedged it under the handle. The knocking didn't come, but something worse did. Around 2:50 a.m., I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard the chair slide across the floor. Slowly, deliberately. Something was moving it from the other side. Then, the doorknob turned. I jumped up and grabbed the baseball bat I kept under my bed. I ran to the hallway, just in time to see the basement door swing open about 6 inches. Nothing was behind it, just blackness. No footsteps, no wind, just cold air seeping up like a sigh from below. I slammed it shut, shoved the chair back, and sat with my back to it until sunrise. The next day, I bought a padlock and bolted the door shut. I didn't care if it was legal. I needed peace. It worked for about a week. Then the smell started. Faint at first, like wet concrete, and something else, like rusted metal or old meat. I cleaned the fridge, the garbage disposal, checked the vents. Nothing helped. It was coming from the basement. I almost called the landlord again. But what would I say? Hey, your basement smells like a dead thing and the door keeps opening on its own. No, I kept it to myself. Until one night, I came home from work and found the padlock snapped in two. It was lying on the hallway floor. The basement door was slightly ajar, just an inch. Not wide enough to see anything, but enough to know someone or something had been there. I didn't go near it. I grabbed a hammer and nailed the door shut. 6 nails. 2 across the top, 2 in the middle, 2 at the bottom. Then I pushed the fridge in front of it. It didn't stop the sounds. That night, I heard scraping behind the walls, tapping under the floorboards, shuffling like footsteps that didn't know where to go. And then I heard my name. Not a whisper, not a dream. A voice, muffled but clear, from under my bed. I froze, didn't move for a full minute. Then I slowly leaned down and pressed my ear to the mattress. Nothing. Then suddenly, knocking. 4 rapid bangs from directly beneath the bed. I jumped back and screamed. Called 911. Told them someone was in the house. 2 officers came, searched everything. The basement door was still nailed shut. No one inside. No signs of forced entry. Again, they told me it was probably a prank. Maybe someone hacked my smart devices. I didn't own any. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I packed everything I could fit in my car. Clothes, laptop, toothbrush. I didn't touch the basement. Didn't touch the things I'd stored down there. I drove straight to a friend's place and told her everything. She believed me. She always had a sixth sense for these things. When I came back a week later to grab the rest of my stuff, I found the basement door completely open. The fridge had been pushed aside. The nails? All gone. No damage to the frame. No scratch marks. Just gone. I walked to the edge of the stairwell and looked down. At the bottom, illuminated by the light from above, was my hammer, lying in the middle of the basement floor, right where I left it weeks ago. I turned around and walked out. Never looked back. The landlord tried calling, left voicemails about lease violations and abandoning property. I didn't care. I blocked his number and moved across the state. To this day, I don't know what was in that basement. But I know this. Sometimes when the cops say there's nothing there, it doesn't mean you're safe. It just means whatever is there isn't human.